Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October Quill and Blade live event. This one's a little later in the month for us than normal, but we've kind of had a lot going on, and we've been doing some planning. Of course, this is a big month for us because it's one of the few months a year where all three of our art projects align, be that badge, bi-monthly scene, and of course, scene of the quarter. So this is the point in time where we open up by offering Mango just killed a box. By offering everybody the opportunity to nominate a scene of the quarter. I'm going to start that over here in the channel. So if you want to nominate a scene, the way it works is this. It has to be a scene that has basically happened within one of the existing stories. It could be any of the stories, older, newer, things that are going currently, things that have happened in the past, that sort of thing. But it does have to be an existing scene. And you will all nominate what you would like to see, and then the patrons will vote on which one actually gets made. So let's go ahead and I will open it up here on the right in just a second, and you can all nominate. Okay, have at it. Anything that goes on between there is a possibility. So we are going to start with that one. Once we get past a little scene of the quarter action, we will move on and do a few things through our agenda, and we will wrap the whole thing up with Wing and his raffle for the various cards that are part of our quote-unquote Quill and Blade store. Anyway. And Mango is escaping. So Crystal's going to take over while I go wrangle Mango.
Oh, take over, what? I guess I'll take this moment to remind you all that scenes don't have to be from the most recent stuff, which is always the most memorable, but you can, other stories like Sunny's Days has things, Velveteen Mask has scenes. Use those creative juices. Unfortunately, Ephemeral, it has to be a scene in a story. So you are stricken from the list.
Or you get writing.
Or you stick to the rules, sir.
I suppose, if I must.
I don't believe Crystal getting Aria has been recommended. So congratulations, you have nominated it. I am sensing a... Yeah, what we probably should have done was move it to the spoiler channel, but oh well, it's too late now. It has begun. Ooh, I do like Azurite getting the cake frosting. That's using that callback memory.
Mango has been secured and incarcerated.
Okay. I hope you dealt with her swiftly and sternly.
I did. Okay. Do another minute or so of nominations, and we'll close it up. And Crystal's taking notes, I'm sure. And we will come back to that. So while we let that roll, we will move on to our first big announcement. And this is actually a pretty big one, I like to think. So let's talk about Crystal's wishes. And I do mean Crystal's wishes, not hopes. We have been asked previously in the past, when were we going to release the hardcover physical edition of the book, and we said we would like to have it around Christmas. Again, our year has been a lot busier than we thought it would be, so we're a little behind on that, but with all the experience we had doing the memoirs one, life will go a little bit easier this time. Starting next week, we will be taking pre-reserves on the book. We're going to do it very differently this time, because last time, in an effort to make sure that it was not profitable and that it was clearly not a for-profit endeavor, we went to the extreme of that. I just don't feel like it's going to be necessary to do that. I don't think anyone's really going to care. And more importantly, we will still, any potential profit of which last time there was none, and I doubt there will be this time either, we'll just donate it to a charity so that it works out. So we will be starting pre-orders on the book as early as next week. Once Crystal gets back, we've got to do some programming work so that it's a much smoother process. But once that happens, we will do pre-orders. Pre-orders will be the full price of the book. There will not be a second chance to order. There will not be a down payment and then balance situation. That was just a complete pain in the butt and did not work out. We will only be doing it through PayPal, so there will not be two systems, and that is how it will go. The book itself will probably be right around $25, and I'm pretty confident that we can do it for that. We're going to be ordering at least 60 regardless of how many pre-orders we get. I imagine we'll get more than that we did for memoirs, and especially after having a successful one, I think there's an appetite for it. So we're planning all pricing based on 60 because the next cost break is at 120, and that's a lot of books. I just don't see that happening. So we're planning it based on 60. Books are going to be roughly $25, and shipping will be domestically probably right around $4, and that's it. Unfortunately, in with it being where we are at in the year, postal rates are looking a bit higher. So international shipping is going to be somewhere between 25. Yes, media mail exactly, between $25 and $35. So I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be, but that's literally it. So for international, shipping will cost more than the book. I wish there was something different, but it is what it is. So we will be doing that. As per normal, Crystal's book will be a limited edition, one-time print for this, in which, again, she does personalized signatures and all that. And we will go with that. So we will be ordering a minimum of 60, regardless of how many people jump in or not. We'll just float loan if suddenly we don't. But of course, again, if we by some strange occurrence get a massive underselling, like 10 to 20, then we're going to cancel the project and we'll refund everybody's money. But just keep that in mind that it will be a one-time thing. There will be a window, and once the window is closed, it's over. At the same time, we will be 83 copies of memoirs were sold, and about 85 to 90 were printed. And with that in mind, there has been a very big request after memoirs was out in the wild and successful. A lot of people are like, oh, I probably should have done that. I just didn't know if it was going to happen. So there will be a second reprint of memoirs, or a first reprint of memoirs to go with this. Shipping can be combined, and it will also be $25. It will be a smaller book, and it will not be numbered, and it will feature a clear second printing in it. So we'll be doing those at the same time. You can pre-order them together. You can kind of get some synergy on shipping, probably a little bit anyway. And we'll be doing that. So that's going to come up as early as next week. I highly encourage you to get in sooner rather than later, because again, sooner helps us plan, later pushes it more likely to us not doing it. And then, there's no going back and going, oh, well, actually I would have done it. I didn't realize you were so short. So we'll be doing announcements, and we're going from there. And Crystal can kind of tell you where she's at if she wants to. But again, kind of bear it in mind. Delivery date. And I want to be very clear about this. Delivery date will likely not be this year, but we're going to do all this in advance, and we're going to get them as soon as possible. We would love for them to arrive in December, but I am not in any way, shape, or form promising that. I'm promising that, because this course will be really appropriate and fun, they will arrive for Valentine's Day. That is our drop dead, and we made all of our targets on memoirs for the most part. We were within 1 or 2 weeks. And of course we went through a couple of machinations, and we can do things a lot faster now, but drop dead date will be Valentine's Day. So Crystal, if you want to discuss at all the process, where you're at, anything like that, go for it.
Yeah. So as we discussed, it's going to be, obviously because Wishes is so big, we're splitting into 2 books. This first one is going to be called Crystal's Wishes Once Upon a Time. What I'm looking at as the breakpoint for part 1 versus part 2 is Halcyon Days. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word right. I picked it as my title, and I don't remember how to pronounce it. But that is basically, for anyone who's read Witches, is the chapter where Silent Night graduates, and during the graduation ceremony, Crystal goes through all those reminiscing moments of, I've come a long way, I have all these friends, I have, I'm in love with the stallion who loves me back. It seems like a very perfect little ending point for part 1. So that's where I'm currently looking at breaking up Wishes, if anyone remembers that chapter.
Which is ironically the end of memoirs.
Which is, yes, kind of ironically the end of memoirs. Just kind of a cute little happenstance there. So I'm going, yes, Silent Night's graduation from was, yes, that's basically where it's going to split. I realized today how late it is in the year and how little progress I have done on revisions. So I've started that. I'm going to possibly some weeks only do one update to kind of focus on doing these revisions. And also I'm working on Veil, as I've mentioned. So I'm kind of doing a lot of behind the scenes non-film fiction posting work. So that's going to kind of cut into my posting writing, if you all can forgive me for that.
Good stuff. Yep. So, and that's pretty much the boat I'm in as well. I've shifted to a once a week schedule so that I could get more of this stuff done in the back end, and we will continue to do so to deliver kind of longer, more epic things going forwards instead of just serials. So as we shift from one thing to the other.
And also, as we did with memoirs, there will be a open Google document for people to, if they so want to and are inspired to, help with editing and whatnot. I'll be dropping in chapters as I go through them, revising them, putting them in there. I'll do updates on Twitter when I put a new chapter in there for anyone who's interested in that. So, hey, by the way, we have a Twitter account. Please follow that.
Indeed. So yes, that is where we're at. And again, it would be unlikely that we'll start getting books there in December, but not impossible. It largely depends on Nalu's cover schedule, Crystal's writing, and then of course the turnaround from the printing. And of course, we're also again going to have to do at least one minor new proof for the second printing of memoirs, because again, memoirs featured a 12-point font for a very large block font, which yielded a larger book than necessary, and a lot of people liked that, and I don't blame you. But the font's very large, and that pushed the book another roughly 100 pages, or 1/6 of the entire size, which pushed the weight over 2 pounds, which pushed the cost of shipping incredibly higher. So roughly for international shipping, that pushes it to about $35 American, of which last time we ate 10 of it so that our international people wouldn't have to pay so much. We just ate it so that we could get it out there. But really, shipping the original copy of memoirs is about $35 in current USPS rates. So the goal for both of these books and all future books is to be below 2 pounds, and that means a bit of a smaller font. But again, we were much bigger than normal books anyway. We were bordering on the large print books, and keeping the page count below about 500, depending on what we can do without ruining the story. And if we make it, we make it. If we don't, we don't. From a domestic perspective, it doesn't really hurt anything, but from an international, it adds a lot of weight, which is just devastating. But again, look out for pre-orders next week or two. It just depends on how we go with the programming, but that's going to be our focus once Crystal gets back from vacation. And at that point, again, it'll be a much smoother process this time, I promise, and we will kind of go from there. But I'm excited to do it. I'm excited that anyone, if you missed a memoirs, you can pick it up similarly. And I'm hoping we do similar books for Crystal, right around the 80 range. If we miraculously hit 120, that reduces everybody's cost. But again, that's a big ask in my opinion. But we'll see. All right. Anything else?
I can dream, Harold.
Yes. Anything else on that before I move on?
I have nothing more unless anyone has any questions, but I guess if you do, just drop into the questions channel.
Indeed. Okay, so obviously we've done Scene of the Quarter. I kind of ran that out of order and in parallel. So the next big thing is the Beyond the Veil teaser. Now, again, I know we talk about it a lot and people might be tired of that, but we're very excited about it. It's, our first true collaboration work, and again, we're not as far as we thought we would be by now. I mean, truly we're not, but progress is being made. And one of the things that might have been obvious is when you read the latest chapters of Crystal's Hopes and you kind of start to see and get a feel for the culture of Saddle Arabia, you can see the time and effort we're putting in, because those chapters obviously benefited dramatically from the amount of work we've been doing in the background. So again, for those who may have not been, Beyond the Veil will not be a serial. It will be a 4-part story, which in some arguments may be 4 stories, just really kind of depending on it. But it'll have, one long focus on the main character. We will not release anything until a part is complete. Yes, arcs, correct. When a part is complete or an arc is complete, we will release that. So there will be 4 releases, and then that will finish the story. The story takes place, as we know, in Saddle Arabia, and does not involve characters that are engaged with our main pantheon of characters. That's not really the focus, but of course this is a Quill and Blade. We will release an entire arc in one go. You will have, it will be chapters, but if it's 10 chapters in an arc, we will drop 10 chapters in a single day. It's not a serial, there is no waiting. That's no different than dropping a normal story, but we'll see how it goes. It just depends on length. We're not really sure where we're going to be yet. So, all right. So, Crystal, you've been doing some work on it lately. What do you want to share? What can we share today?
I will touch on the whole dropping the arc thing. This story is so the marketing strategy of posting chapters by chapter across several days is, of course, if it does well, it gets in the feature box each day and it gets more eyes on it. I'm not really super 100% interested in the randoms of film fiction. Obviously, they're going to find the story and they're going to read the story. That's just going to happen. You can't stop that. But I'm not really trying to advertise this story to try and draw in new audience. This is really a story for people who like us in our writing. So this is for you guys. So you're just going to get a whole bunch of content all at once, and then there'll be a pause while we get the next arc finished, and then you get a whole bunch of content all at once. But each arc is fairly contained, more or less. So obviously there's the overarching plot that goes through all the 4 arcs that you'll have to wait on for the resolution, but there will be resolution in each individual arc, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. So basically, that's kind of how we're going to look. So we'll look at it, but yes, like Crystal says, we're not in a mode of trying to massively grow an audience or be feature box darlings or anything like that with this. This is purely a passion project written together between the two of us to look at the possibility of doing something different, something outside the comfort zone, and frankly, I imagine an OC story, a heavy OC story with zero canon characters in it, with a tangential link to semi-recognizable OCs in an area that is not frequently covered and basically has little information about it. Probably not going to be that super popular on film, and not really our concern whether or not you get a whole bunch of story at once or not.
So on the note of teasers and whatnot, so while we haven't made as much progress as we hope to get on the actual writing of the story, we do have tons and tons of notes. I have about 10 pages of notes of the Arabian culture, of the story itself, of all of these things. So I'm really excited about that. The process, so when we talk about collaboration, the process that this will be is basically we'll lay out the skeleton of each chapter, and then we will just pass it back and forth, expanding it out until we're both satisfied with it. So this will benefit from both of, sorry, someone just I guess, walked by our door and hit it. Okay, we're good. Okay, they just rested something on our door. Maybe? Hold on, give us a second. We're not sure if someone's here.
Okay, well, while they're figuring out whether or not they're about to be murdered, I lost my train of thought when I thought about them getting murdered. That's not good. Okay, anyway. So yes, as Christo was mentioning, we have in-depth notes, in-depth outlines, in-depth timelines, and what we really just lack is the minute details of the day-to-day, but that won't be too difficult. I will say this will also be our first adventure story. I know that my stories have elements of adventure, but then also fall back on text mom, find out. I guess maybe they thought you'd be out today, or mom basically decided that you could stay longer without checking it. So,
okay, we're good, sorry.
Okay.
They came to clean and didn't realize we were here. So I guess they're just gonna go away.
No,
Okay, I'm back.
you need to check with my mom because that's not how it works with those. They only clean
Oh.
when you leave, so they might charge her for the service of just coming out. It's not like a
Okay.
daily clean. So I'll let you deal with that, and I will wrap this up just a little bit here. Okay, so this is going to be a really weird YouTube. Anyway, day to day, that's going to come up. That's going to be, but oh yes, okay. Train of thought restored. This is going to be our first adventure story. It will have the pacing of an adventure story. Again, while Trials does have those elements, it's still always functionally a slice of life. It just happens to be the slice of life of a soldier. This story is not going to have any slice of life elements from chapter 1 and on. We're going to immediately start getting into it. So it may seem a little faster paced for us, maybe not compared to other writers, but from our perspective, we're going directly head on and straight through from start to finish. And we're kind of excited about that too. So, this could be something either really, really good or atrociously bad just because we're trying to do things very far outside of our normal comfort zone. And I think it'll work out, but and that's another reason why we're not trying to release an epic that's going to be a fem darling. It's not. This is going to be a story for the Quill and Blade audience that exists for people that like to read us. And if you don't, chances are you're not going to understand because you're going to want to know how does this relate to ponies when there's no ponies at all. All right. So,
And I guess.
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say. Okay. My mother says everything's fine. Hi, YouTube. We're talking about non-QMB things. Did we want to give any kind of content teaser?
We could do a little content teaser.
Because the long description is something.
Yep. Why don't you go ahead and share the long description and read it in your most amazing of voices?
I don't have an amazing voice.
Then read it like a 1980s robot.
I don't really know how to do that either.
Then read it to Siri and have Siri say it while you hold the click.
How about I just read it? I'm probably going to stumble over this, but I'm going to try my best. Okay. Sand and water are the elements of love
Stop.
in Saddle Arabia's.
Stop.
What?
Your connection was crap.
Really? Did I go robot without even trying?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, try again.
Just a natural talent.
I am so good at this. Okay, so do I seem to be good now?
Yes. Give it a go.
Sun, sand, wind, and water are the elements of life in Saddle Arabia's. No, but it keeps going orange. Can I just?
Send it to me?
Yeah, you read it.
All right. I will be reading this in the lame tradition of William Shatner. Sun, sand, wind, and water are the elements of life in Saddle Arabia's nigh endless expanse of desert that takes up most of the continent. Among the shifting sands are several nomadic herds, all of whom follow the guidance of their matron jinn in order to survive the harsh environment. Aisha bint Sahar belongs to the herd of Al Hawa, who wander in search of precious gemstones and minerals. She had never known true strife or hardship, but a chance encounter will force her to think beyond the veil of her ignorance. So there you go. And that is the long description for the story that we will be releasing sometime next year. And I do mean next year because we're not going to finish the first part before the end of this year.
No, not with everything else going on.
Yep. So yeah, it should be good. All right. Okie dokie. So we have a little thought we'd try something different this time and see how it goes. And if it doesn't, that's fine. We'll do a little my little thing is board games, and then we've got a guest speaker. So we'll do kind of board games, kind of talk about that real quick and see how that goes. Because we wanted to see what the interest would be. Yep, Wings Raffle is last, not last before the Q&A. Kind of the cherry on top. So board games are, of course, a big part of my life and a big part of Silent Knight's life. And we thought we would try to see if there was any interest in doing things that weren't necessarily specifically directly related to our stories and ourselves, i.e. something more community-based. We'll see how that goes and give this a shot this week. So I know several of you are into board games, although not necessarily all of them. But one of the things that we like to do is we like to play group board games, and that's kind of a thing that we play more than anything else. And we thought we'd share some of our favorites with you, and then kind of move on to our next little feature of the show, I guess. Okay, so for us, a board game, has a lot of different, styles and types, but what we shoot for as a group, of course, is lots of players, meaning 6 or more, and only takes about half an hour to 90 minutes. That's kind of our requirement with our group, because typically when we play at a brewery's tap room anyway, which is a lot of fun. So what we look at, that's what we look for in a game, and what we kind of play more than anything is One Night Ultimate Werewolf and its other numerous successors. So I don't know how many of y'all have played that, but it is what inspired Timberwolf in Memoirs of a Royal Guard, and of course Crystal's Wishes. So the goal of One Night Ultimate Werewolf is to figure out who the baddies are and murder them. You only get one night to do it, and it's a game of deduction. It is like Mafia. Yes, that is correct. It is like Mafia, but there's only one round. So the way this works, and we're going to actually bring a copy to, yes, also like Town of Salem, to BronyCon to play with the group, is there are several different roles that can do special things. And of course, you're trying to figure out who the werewolves are. And the werewolves, of course, are represented by Timberwolves in our little setting, but the werewolves know who each other's are, but they don't know who maybe a special werewolf would be, if there is one, and there may not be, depending on how you play the game. So that's one that we play for our groups. I highly recommend familiarizing yourself with that prior to BronyCon and maybe checking that out. You can play it with as little as 4 people, but it plays best with 5 or more. That's one that we've kind of enjoyed, so it's a recommendation there. Another one that we play a decent amount of is Sheriff of Nottingham, which has not featured in Memoirs or any of our stories as of yet. It's a one that we've been playing recently. Sheriff of Nottingham is another lying and deduction game. As you can check, we're kind of really into those sort of things. So the way this one works is everybody gets a turn to play the sheriff. And everyone's goal is to get as much contraband into Nottingham as possible to make the most money and thus win and be the richest merchant. So what's interesting is the sheriff role passes every turn, and you can bribe the sheriff to let you bring things in. It's another lying game, and you collect different goods, several of which are legal, but playing straight-laced and legal doesn't always work out to the best of your abilities. So that's another fun one. We play a lot of, and we thought we'd kind of talk about a little bit these and just see, what other people are playing. If there's a lot of board gamers here, and I don't know that there are, but we just thought we would try something a little different. So, has anyone else played any particular board games as of late, or recommendations for the class? Because this is kind of interactive. I have played Chaos in the Old World. Yep. That was one that I played with, let's see, I'm trying to figure which group that was. Yep, that's the one we played with Will. Yes, well, we have played all of those. Yep, Dominion comes up a lot. I am not a huge fan of Dominion, but my group has been. That's been a lot. Played a lot of Settlers of Catan, a lot of Small World, played a ton of Pandemic. I like Pandemic a lot. We do feature, of course, Pandemic in. It does feature in our world. I don't remember what we called it, but it's the one where he's playing it with iridescence, and then all of a sudden every pony's dead. I don't remember which god I played in Chaos the Old World. I haven't played it a lot. It's a friend of mine has it. So we play those. Those are pretty good ones. We haven't played much lately. We haven't had the opportunity. Just everybody's been so busy. We haven't been out to the brewery. But again, we're going to be bringing a couple different ones to BronyCon to play as a group. And kind of tangentially related is we're going to hopefully, once they start open up event submissions, we're going to be doing our live event directly from there. So the August live event will be live from BronyCon, which we'll have to figure out the technical challenges for that, because I've never really done that before, like a live stream, but we will be doing it that way, assuming we can get it approved. But if we can't get it approved, then we're just going to huddle in a corner somewhere and do it anyway. So, approved or not, it's going to happen. And there will be Quill and Blade board gaming. That will be something that happens. I don't really know that I want to be so famous so fast.
I don't want to be famous.
So, not high on our agenda, but anyway. Right. So, just some notes, thoughts, but highly recommend checking those out if you haven't yet. And what's going to be next is we're going to let Goal do his guest speaking role. As a reminder to everyone, if you want to be a guest speaker, we have a small process. Not much to it. It's just when Crystal takes submissions, what is it? You fill out a little form. How's it work?
You just tell me what you want to talk about, and then I'll put it on the poll.
Okay, you send Crystal a PM with your topic, and then it goes on the poll. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we will unmute Goal, and the topic today is writing an antagonist.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes.
I am unleashed at last. Fantastic. Yes, well. First of all, greetings everyone. I am known as Kulheru, and those of you that are active Quill and Blade fans might recognize me for being the lover of darkness and emotional suffering, purveyor of fine wine made from the depths of despair, and all-around smirk maestro. Titles like these do not come from thin air lakes of primordial soup, I assure you, but are the fruit of many years of practicing being a villain. Now I wish to bestow this secret knowledge upon you to help the creators out there become better at giving their stories fantastic characters of the broad, dark spectrum of life. Let me start by making a few points. First of all, by no means do I view myself as an absolute oracle on all things evil and malevolent, despite having some experience. If what I say seems obvious to you, great, it means you grasped it. If you have a better way of writing villains, good for you, show us. If you don't agree with what I am saying, that's fine, it's your right. I don't promise that I won't try to convince you otherwise, but I understand the need for pointless opposition. Second of all, whatever dark deeds shall be mentioned as ones that a villain can commit when you write him, they are not necessarily condoned or supported by me. Well, most of them anyway. Even though I'm perfectly capable of villainous thinking, I am not an advocate of antagonists in real life. Well, no, that's a lie, I'm a lawyer. Irrelevant. As I was saying, the heinous crimes and acts of utter barbarity tonight are for educational purposes only. I do not find them desirable, even if for the reason that summoning demonic armies to do your bidding is in 9 out of 10 times counterproductive, and the slaughter of innocent women and children is simply not classy. Of course, most people gathered here are interested in friendship is magic, but this workshop is a way of appreciating villainy in general. So even if some of the points might not fit the setting in which stealing someone's cupcake is comparable to a murder most foul, do keep your mind open. After all, maleficent deeds done right have their place even in fair Equestria. Speaking of cupcakes. Murder, Pinky wrote. During the workshop, examples of great characters, plots, and storytelling from popular culture might be mentioned and given. While I will do my best to avoid spoilers, I do hope for you, dear audience, to already know the basics and the lives and times of classic villains and antagonists like the Joker, Fu Manchu, Voldemort, and that chap that made a solid sum of money from deerskin trade thanks to Bambi's mother. Also, it is worth mentioning that I do possess a favorite type of villain. Manipulative, deceitful, giving false advice to better his own standing, sophisticated, with a dashing grin, a foreign accent, a voice of silken quality. Wait, that's my dating bio. Never mind. Anyway, although I do find myself supporting the more elaborate, lawful evil, I will be granting examples of a wider spectrum. After all, who knows who exactly might you need to set the world ablaze and be the king of the ashes? How lovely. And last but by no means least, feel free to prepare some questions during the workshop if anything interests you in particular. You can contact me afterwards if you desire an answer, or you just want to let me know that something that I have said offended you because you are just queasy when it comes to evil. I will duly apologize to your pitiful pure heart. All right, one could talk hours about the topic of writing a good antagonist, you know, but I will attempt my best at giving you a few pointers that I hope will make you improve your writing. Right, where to start? I think I can begin with a little bit of a heresy, provocation, taunting, like a good villain. And it shall be this. Your story does not need a villain. All right. I cannot hear screams of shock. Good, because I despise being interrupted. You see, an adventure, a story of self-discovery, is not something that necessarily needs an antagonist to appear in it. Sometimes a natural disaster is enough. Sometimes the protagonist needs some me time to figure things out. That's cool. That's good. That's grand. You don't need a bad guy to make things challenging or interesting. But why would I be pointing that out at the very start? For one specific reason, ladies and gentlemen. The introduction of a villain, or a rival, or a challenger, and I shall explain what I understand by such a classification later on, is a crucial element of creating a new story. As much as the hero is the one we are rooting for usually, the villain is the other side's favorite. As much as the protagonist should be complex and fleshed out to make him interesting, even in the slightest, so must be the antagonist. Otherwise, there is really no point. The effort to make a believable, loved-to-be-hated character is equal and sometimes greater to the work one should put in the hero. Ultimately, you must understand that the antagonist is creating a tale of their own, of bravery and ambition, self-discovery and change, with their quirks and sayings and behaviorisms. And if you are not prepared to put that much effort into him or her, you might be better off without an enemy in general. After all, a cataclysmic event is a simpler fellow, but might still work for you. That is why you first need to ask yourself, do I need an antagonist? Do I need an arch-enemy, a villain, to make the story full or motivate Mr. Whitehat? And if your answer is not really, consider it carefully. But if your answer is yes, know that you must be ready to give the reader someone of value. Someone characterful and characteristic. Someone with a presence, a motive, a role. And if you wish to know how to do it, then keep listening, for things start to get even more interesting now. Let's get to part one, ladies and gentlemen. The villain, the hero. No, we're not talking shipping. Not yet, anyway. As I have pointed out before, the villain is a hero. Of his own story, his own tale, his own adventure. Surely, for a separate reason altogether from Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, but dare not think that a good villain will just be someone that you plop into the tale to make it spicy. It will burn your mouth if you do so, because there is no worse question to receive from a reader at the very end of a tale than, what was the point of having that guy? Would that upcoming apocalypse not do without the creepy priest that did nothing but scream at the corner? Everyone was screaming already. Hence why, first of all, I do wish to encourage, when creating a villain, to think of him as a hero in their own right. After all, villains tend to be a bit over everyone else's material. They are smart, they are strong, they follow their creed, or they are in this for fun, money, fame, just like some heroes. Their own story comes into conflict with the other side, sometimes to the point of not really knowing who is whose hero and who is whose villain. Antagonists shape the world around them. They motivate their followers, commit feats of strength and cunning, survive disastrous events, to a point. After all, everybody dies. Why it is so crucial to make this the first point? For many writers tend to initially think of all the vices and sins that the villains possess, that they are unjustly proud or filled with wrath. But can pride not go with charisma, pushing the masses towards a common goal? Wrath with a righteous purpose, the road to which is simply tainted. Evil is often a distorted desire for good. Remember that when creating your antagonist. Speaking of which, who is he or she or it or them? It might be an obvious point, but a villain's origin story is equally important and naturally connected to the qualities of character. Would you have a greedy merchant who grew up in poverty, hence why he now values money so much? Perhaps he's still supporting that orphanage he was brought up in. Ultimately, whatever your antagonist's origin story is, you can go two ways. You might want to make it intricate to the point of having the audience go, oh, that's why he's so screwed up. However, do remember that depending on the effect you're hoping to achieve, you sometimes can omit that. An ancient evil that was here from the beginning of time, like the great Cthulhu, or for the lips, pardon, sometimes needs it not. It just is there, watching, waiting, holding its breath. But let us not get ahead of ourselves. Background stories, as much as the ones attached to the heroes, must be consequential and logical, but they're not always necessary to make the characters appear more human or pony. You know what I mean. We have a lot of redemption pushed down our throat by My Little Pony. You don't need to add to it. Backstories, though, can give us insight without explaining why the villain does what he does, but they need to anchor him in the world you are creating. Examples of bad origin story we can find in our beloved show too. Ask Thorax about his claims considering the changelings. We are born this way, but I was born that way. No, for God's sake. If you want to see how snippets of information can bring forth a villain's backstory, I want to grant you some examples. Pagan Min from Far Cry, the ruler of Kirat, reveals to the protagonist, Ajegale, that a part of his motivation to rule the country with an iron fist is connected to the murder of his baby daughter, Lakshmana. But then I realized I was only using Lakshmana's death as an excuse to do whatever I wanted to do. Just as you use those ashes as an excuse to do whatever you want to do. God damn if it isn't fun. Which is not only a brilliant example of going into a villain's psyche, but is a great line to poke the hero with. Use the backstory as a tool to make your character more believable, logical in his or her foundations. As another example, I recommend watching the Target videos from Assassin's Creed 2, which I do possess a link to for those interested, though as the contents are slightly not safe for work, I'd rather give those away to the interested people rather than post them directly in the chat. And of course, when you're creating character, think about the most basic matters when it comes to it. How do they look? Does the villain have to always appear like a madman? Does it fit him? Must there be an aura of dread at all times? We'll get to that. And what is his name? Nathanos Blightcaller? Wow, very trustworthy. Think about it for a second. What mother names their child Spoiled Milk, for example? Unless it is a name that they have themselves picked, it is you who can make an antagonist's name matter. Think of it this way. A joker is a card, a part of a deck. It doesn't mean maniac or psychopath or murderer. And yet one of the most iconic characters of the DC universe bears that name and it evokes terror. Why? Because of the deeds he commits. You could name your character Butterfly and make him the most dangerous mare or stallion in the land. What if he's a killer who sees others as caterpillars, whose spirits must be freed from their ugly bodies? Or a mare that runs the most luxurious house of ill repute, gathering information and blackmailing clients while strolling around with a mask of a butterfly shape. It is the actions of villains that fuel their name, not the other way around. It seems so obvious, but is so often forgotten. Joker, Kadajin, Magneto, Professor Moriarty, which is Irish for navigator, President Snow, Arthas Menethil, or Ramsay Bolton. None of these names carries with it a negative connotation, and yet they are considered names of the villains in their respected universes. To summarize quickly, a villain is a hero of their own tale. Their background must fit the world you are building and should be a source of understanding of their motivation. Their actions is what makes them a villain in the setting, not how they are called. And remember that your antagonist is as important as your hero, and you can spawn a character that will truly shine. Before the part 2, then just take a quick sip of water. Right, I'm back. Everyone's still here? Good. Part 2, which I have called The Presence, the Motive, and the Role. Because speaking of villainous actions, I would like to point at something that I think makes a crucial difference between a forgettable antagonist, a decent antagonist, and a great antagonist. And I call it the presence. By which I do not mean charisma in general. No, the presence does not mean just that, because that would be limiting it to the more sophisticated villains. Whilst in general, it is something that I would mark a quality of each antagonist. It is their ability to exact their being around them, to come to the scene and steal it, corrupt it, overtake it. A quick example, Captain Davy Jones from the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie does not have the charisma of a preacher, and yet his introduction, his mannerisms and accent, his looks from the dark abyss of the ocean, it gives him presence. It twists the scene into his playground. Do you fear death? Do you fear that dark abyss? And that marks a truly marvelous character. The presence is something that can be achieved through physical feats, great strength, or beauty, or disfigurement, by the traits of mind, knowledge, or wit, or even spiritual qualities, an otherworldly aura, or piety. But it is something, a unique trait of the character, that makes him so good at being bad. And you need to think about it as well. A zealous priest might blind everyone with his fiery speeches, lifting the spirits of the faithful or causing those that oppose him to doubt their own causes. A powerful warlord might intimidate his foes by his presence, with ease dispatching veteran warriors in the midst of battle, being seen by all. A sage that seeks power without remorse might have an answer to many of your questions and puzzle you. But whatever is the basis of their presence, they are oozing it around, corrupting the scenes they are in. They don't have to be an ancient evil to do so. A schoolyard bully in your tale might have presence. He has a group of followers that take his words and dare not oppose him. He knows how to avoid teachers, but the moment the protagonist sees him in the corridor full of students, the place might as well be empty, because the appearance of the bully takes away attention from everything else. The presence is critical. Whether it is Phantom of the Opera, or Count Dracula, or Colonel Hans Landa, or M. Bison. Do you want another close example? Very well, let me show it to you. It will provide a good opportunity to move to the next point I wish to make about characters and their motivations. Let me tell you about Madame Ouija, a character that appears in the most lovely Crystal's hopes, in a scene for which I'm eternally grateful to one of our dear hosts, Crystal Wishes. Madame Ouija, an idea brought forth by yours truly and perfected by Crystal, is a character I would mark with a strong presence. Her scene is oversaturated with it. For a moment, control of the tale is seduced away from our wonderful heroine and granted to a silken-voiced mare that wishes to help, and does so in her own way, stealing Crystal's confidence with her presence. And the outcome of that is still seen, isn't it? Which brings us to the second order of business in this spot, an antagonist's motivations. Which is something that I think makes an antagonist far more interesting than the hero. Because, of course, the good guy can be on his quest because of revenge, money, the desire for fame, but his motivation has to be neutered so he fits the light side. Whereas the antagonist can go that one step further. That step that is captivating the audience, even sometimes making it root for him. But that motivation can come from the same basis as in the hero's cause, and I want to make that clear. Say that Mr. Hero was a poor child, a street rat. He can end up like Aladdin, stealing to survive, but ultimately giving away the last loaf of bread to the starving children from the neighborhood. Or he can end up like Varys from Game of Thrones, who, despite having interesting intentions, has some pretty decent villainous qualities, being the spy master at the Iron Throne. And I want to give that example as well in the links that I will be handling out. Or someone, a street rat, could swear never to be in poverty again, even if that means killing a noble to take his place and hoarding money. That's that one step further. One deed too much that separates a hero from the villain. But the border is really, really thin. Batman, being the edgy 8-year-old he is, gives a nice example of that. When being asked by the Red Hood character, why did he never kill the Joker, is it perhaps because it is so hard to cross that line, he replied, "No, God almighty, no, it'd be too damn easy." Well, villains cross that line. Their motivations often mirror the ones of a hero, but they go that one step further, and let one step further be in your mind when you create the villain. And as Madame Ouija would say, there are a lot of ponies coming from this war. They will need counsel, help, and aid. Why not in the embrace of the spirits of their lost ones? I can give that to them, and they will be very thankful for it. Speaking of which, villains often do not see themselves as villains, which is why they can do what they do so easily. Let me use my knowledge on criminology for a moment. There is something that many specialists call naturalization when it comes to committing crimes. The English terms may vary, I admit. The theory states that people commit crimes due to naturalizing one of the crime's aspects. Whether it is believing that a deed is not a crime, that they are allowed due to their status to do something, that their judges are not in the right to pass the judgment on them. Villains do that too. And only a sporadic amount see themselves as evil, but even then they can work for the greater good. Or just fun. That works too. Let me give more examples. An ancient evil from our mortal standpoint is obviously evil. But creatures like the Harbinger from the Mass Effect series find themselves a part of a greater order of things, threatening the life in the galaxy to preserve balance and save it ultimately. It comes to the perspective. A corrupt businessman like Lex Luthor believes that an alien like Superman should not be venerated by the people. He's not of this world after all. Though Luthor's original motivation was blaming Superman for his hair loss, which is petty though rather creative. Or a berserker of Khorne, blood for the blood god, sorry, can see the carnage as an offering in a mindless universe. Admittedly, motivation comes down to reason. It might be twisted, it might be disturbing, but a good motivation is measured by its corrupted logic. And the villains should let the hero know of it. A great antagonist can even cause the audience to start doubting the hero, sway some of it his or her way. If anybody would like those, hit me with a message later on. I have perfect examples from Azariah Kyrus of the Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War 2, or Haytham Kenway from Assassin's Creed 3. In general, Assassin's Creed games, although some of them are sadly lacking gameplay, have some pretty great inspirations when it comes to the morally ambiguous characters. I advise watching the so-called memory corridors from the first, the third, and the Syndicate installments for some great antagonist moments. And the motivation can become so twisted as to present the antagonist as the real hero, and do not fear that. I am a humanist, says Satan in The Devil's Advocate, and he makes you believe it. And that is pure brilliance. And finally, my third point in this part, the antagonist's role. It is crucial, whilst creating a character of villainous intent, to realize and always remember, why do you create them? Are they meant to be an arch-enemy, sworn to oppose the hero due to their position? After all, a thief-taker general will not tolerate a brigand, even if one of a heart of gold, to ruin the order of society. Or are they a rival? Maybe both the hero and the villain care for the same damsel or gentleman. But the rival tends to go that one step further in his attempts to woo the subject of his affection. Maybe jealousy causes the conflict. Or is the antagonist but a challenger? They compete with no vile intention, but the situation forces the hero and antagonist to clash. I'm pointing that out so you remember that the antagonist must remain true to the role that you're using him for. Surely, in conjunction with what I said, we mustn't forget that villains should be allowed to grow and change just like a hero, and that he can influence you. More on that in a moment. But you, as the creator, cannot allow, for example, a comic relief to suddenly be revealed as the archenemy if he was only throwing water balloons at Mr. Good Guy previously. Remember the role, and write accordingly to it. Let me give you this example. Those of you playing RPGs, especially Dungeons & Dragons, might recognize the alignment system. The 9 easily recognizable examples, 3 of them the book summarized as, this alignment is the most dangerous alignment because, showing you why a character of this type might be a challenge for the players. Well, nobody sees a lawful good character suddenly going neutral evil, unless hit by a curse or something, which is still gauche. Make the change slow and deliberate, or keep to the role. By the way, I think all of those alignments should be, is the best alignment, especially for those that write antagonists, wouldn't you say? To summarize this part, your villain needs to have the presence to make him interesting and memorable, whether through the way they behave or the way they present themselves to others. Their motivation needs to be logical, even if that logic is twisted. And the role that they play in the story has to influence how they are portrayed, with changes coming from character development, like in the hero's case. Short break for water. We're coming to part 3, ladies and gentlemen, which I called the Art of Villainous Writing. Because now that we have the man and his plan, how do we actually write him? Of course, we take the pen, paper, binary code, or whatever, and we breathe life to him or her simply, like with everything that we write. Admittedly, An antagonist should fit into the world, so we can write about him like one writes about weather, politics, and candy. However, I wish to present a few points that might make you better at tackling the writing of a villain. Firstly, if a villain decides to scheme against you and subvert your authority, good. That's very good. A character that lives its own life because they know how they would react and you feel it being more appropriate than an initial idea, go for it. It means that the antagonist is getting so fleshed out that they're becoming a living, breathing, kicking, and backstabbing character that they need to become memorable. From time to time, allow them that. Let them surprise not only the hero, the readers, but you as well. A sudden evil plot twist, as long as remaining true to the character, will do a lot of good. Secondly, do not be afraid of going a little bit further, taking yourself that one step further. It might sound obvious, but in many cases, one can be stuck on that small barrier that is our own morality and conscience saying, whoa, what are you doing? Don't let that stop you. Sure, none of us actually thinks about murder or is a misanthrope. But allow yourself to push through this barrier for the sake of the story. You wouldn't kill younglings, but some of the characters out there would. And you need to have the guts to show that. Put that moral dilemma aside for the sake of writing. Nobody reasonable with an opinion worth listening to judges you as the author for the misdeeds of your antagonists. They will judge how something is portrayed, but a creator should not be branded for what he's writing. So go ahead. Even more so, go that one step further yet. But let me first say one more thing before. No matter what happens and how much you care for that little lamb that you gave birth to, if it is necessary, let it die. Do not fear it. An antagonist is an asset, like everything else. It serves a purpose in the tale, and if the tale demands its sacrifice, do it. Don't come up with a patchwork redemption story just so everyone can feel warm and cuddly inside. Kill him. Let him die the noble villain's death rather than sentence him to a life of shameful redemption. Let him take responsibility for his actions. Show us that the cold justice of the universe works. Be that cold, calculating antagonist with your writing. Speaking of which, I'm going to tell you about the technique that I use that has its roots in acting. It's a bit harsher mentally for a creator, especially one that has an emotional side. It's exhausting, but it helps a lot when writing scenes with the antagonist having a pivotal role, as well as giving you, as a creator and a human, a nice catharsis. Just become the villain for a while. Become the antagonist. Do not just write one, be one. Close yourself to everything and envelop yourself in that mantle. Put down on paper, on the screen, everything that you might think of, everything that stirs deep within the depths of your heart and mind. All the pride, egoism, greed, lust, anger, envy and sloth, all the ambition, the strength, the courage, conviction, loyalty, everything that is entwined in this complicated mind of yours. The pain and pleasure, the darkness and light, the love for that one person for whom you are ready to kill, that believe in your righteous cause bringing order and stability threatened by ignorance, the desire for victory that you rightfully deserve, that irritation with insolence and stupidity that surround you while you're trying to make this world a better place, that fatigue with the faults of humankind blindly heading towards its own destruction. Feel it for a brief moment, breathe it. Become the antagonist and consider what a piece of work he is. How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god. And there you have your antagonist. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to give you this lecture. Feel free to message me via Discord or my fanfiction account, Gulheru, with any questions that you might have, and I will gladly answer them, whether regarding something I said or simply help with creating your wonderful, memorable antagonist. And if you would like to be granted those links to the examples I was mentioning, Thank you, and good night.
Very well done. Thank you very much. That was informative. I learned a bit myself and really enjoyed the cadence and performance of it. You've clearly been rehearsing. I like it a lot.
That was a performance. Yes, I actually feel a little bit like we're the wrong people to be doing the talking for event.
Well, I think we've always known that. But no, that was actually a very wonderful lecture. Thank you very much. And of course, that will be archived forever on YouTube so that others can enjoy that and benefit from it. All right. Well, that was exciting. Very
I don't
much
know if
enjoyed
we
it.
can follow that up.
Well, thankfully, we don't have to. Next up is literally just Wing giving away stuff. So let's unmute Wing and let Wing give some stuff away. All right, Wing, you are next. Give things away to people.
I see what you did there. You're making me do the follow-up work.
You got it.
Oh, wait, you know
We
what?
have a wonderful cadence as well.
Ghoul, that was freaking amazing. That's how I'm going to follow that up. That was freaking amazing. But are you ready? This is the simplest raffle that will ever be done ever, because the number of people who want me to have their address is commensurate with the number of things that I can send. So, everybody wins!
Yay! Everyone wins.
I will say this, though. Because I shamelessly stole a badge from Larsis earlier, I guess. They actually sent me a bonus pack, so when I see Larsis at Ciderfest, he will get the magical bonus pack. That's the glory news.
Seems fair. All right.
Congratulations, Lars.
Yep. And thank you, Wing, for taking the time to do that. I'm sure everybody will enjoy it, and maybe we can actually play some ponies at BronyCon.
Ponies!
Okay. Well, we are doing good on time. Goal kept to the 30-minute goal there. Goal. And now we're going to do Q&A. Okie dokie. Let's see. Where's the start of this? There it is. All right. Crystal, why are you chasing young blonde boys?
Because they want me to.
So you're saying they're asking for it?
I would say they're asking for it. I would say that in some regards I pay for it. So they're kind of my floozies.
All right. Let's see. Next question. I just don't have anything else to say to that. Will Crystal take badly the fact that on making a film, the author of the book doesn't have the final word when she finds out? Let's see here. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like there's multiple questions there.
Yes.
Well, it's kind of hard to answer because I think that question was dropped in the channel before the most recent chapters of Hopes. But I guess it would be fair to say that Crystal's reaction is at first depressed and then eventually uplifted.
I would agree. You won't really be able to answer this next one, but you can come up with something clever. How many foals and what races and genders will they be for Crystal?
1 million, and they will all be androgynous.
Excellent. Ansel, since the war is over, is it going to have an impact on equestrian economy? Yes, it will. That we actually see a little bit of in the last chapter. Silent Night talking about that, I think. No, it's coming up in the next one. No, it was the last one. Yes.
Do you know what you're doing?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Let's see here. I give away all my brain power at work now these days. There's just so little left when I'm home. All right. Have you thought about other things which were developed and improved during the wartime from which normal players would benefit? Yes, I have. There are a few things, but potentially not as far-reaching as what typically happens with us. Mostly because, again, ponies don't develop certain things. And again, in the sense of like television, radios, and whatnot. But there are some things that will be seen on the civilian side. Ansel, Crystal, got any plans for Spooky Night? Yes, we do. We will be at Disney World. So yes, we'll be in Disney World having a good time, and we're really looking forward to that. Crystal and Ansel, you two do good writing, like actually good writing. Thank you.
Ooh.
Have you thought or been inspired to write an actual novel or possibly a web series with the same format of your current stories, but not My Little Pony? I personally have had that thought. One of the things to think about regarding that, though, breaking into writing in general is a very trying and difficult thing. What makes fan fiction so much easier and successful is you have a hook that already exists that people don't have to bridge the gap. Now, we have thought about if something happened to fan fiction, or I don't know, we got to burn our butt, reskinning our stories to a 100% original world. We have thought about that, but that's kind of all about where we are. Crystal?
For me, pretty much every time I have a non-pony,
You cut out after the word non-pony. And she might be gone for a minute. She's had connection issues at the beach. It's not great down there. Let's see here. Most of the questions are for her today, though, so we'll just have to wait for her to get back. Let's see. Ansel and Crystal, do you have any unused character ideas other than Gabby Globe that you wish you could take the time to write a story for? Yes. I have a few, but also I guess, I mean, really for me it comes down to, writing a story for Farrell would be interesting if I was up to the challenge. Going back to the Knox twins, that sort of thing.
hear me.
Oh, you're back now. Yes. Are you back? Nope, you're not back. All right. This will be a one-man show. I'm just going to answer. I'm going to pretend to be Crystal and answer. Okay. Let's see here. Crystal, how much time have you spent on researching topics for your story, ballet, publishing, movie making, and what have you had to do the most research on? Oh, I do tons of research, and I spend more time researching than writing, and it drives Ansel nuts. And I did a lot of research on ballet and publishing and movie making, and I built all these links, and I put all of them up there, and I have tons and tons and tons of it, and I've probably done the most research on ballet.
Oh my god, you are too good.
Let's see. Crystal, is there more to Princess of the Mirror? Also, will there be a sequel to The Velveteen Mask? Yes, there is more to Princess in the Mirror. It just hasn't been my focus right now because of how much work we've got going on and all the other projects. But I still love Horsey, and I will definitely be doing more with Horsey. And that is true. And yes, there is a sequel to The Velveteen Mask, but it's not going to be exactly as people might think it's going to be. Yes. Let's see. Next question was for both of us. Do you have any unused character ideas, Crystal? Yes, I have several, and I have more stories than I could potentially write, and not enough time. If only Ansel would let me quit my job and only write pony stuff. All right.
Hello?
Hi.
Is it who you're looking for?
It is you I'm looking for.
Oh, I'm back. I don't know what happened, just the internet. I fell into a twilight zone.
That's fine. Welcome back. I
Ansel
answered
covered
several.
for you spectacularly.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. You're gonna really have to listen to the playback. So we're skipping those because I answered your questions correctly.
I'm sure you did.
Godsby. It said that on the seventh day God rested. What did you really do? He's not. Oh yeah, there he is.
Oh, wait, no. No. I have my bookmarks manager opened up because I wanted to show off my bookmarks. You are asking me that question, sir.
Oh, I already told them that you have tons and tons and tons of bookmarks. I literally answered all your questions for you correctly. You're just gonna have to listen to Posted's playback and deal with it.
Fine, but I'm still spamming screenshots.
That's fine. Ansel, Midmore started off more as a series of slice of life with potential character growth for Silent. Trial still contains a few slice of life type episodes, but mostly concentrates on some very big and important arcs. Did you actually plan for the series to get this series from the beginning, or was it changed on the fly? In the very beginning, no. I had no plans for this whatsoever, nor did I plan to have any success. So originally, it was meant to just be slice of life. After about chapter 25 of Memoirs, though, the interest people had in it and the amount of, excitement towards it started to make me think about the story a little different, and that's when I started planning more long term. So I kind of knew where I wanted to go, mostly by the end of Trials, and then Secrets. I'm sorry, mostly by the end of Memoirs. Secrets and Trials were planned together from the very beginning. So I mean, by the time I'd say a third through Secrets, I already had the ending to Trials and the whole thing loosely put together. So basically, you have to look at it as Memoirs was one story, and if you want to just end happy and that's that, you do that and you read Memoirs and you're done. It's the quote unquote Matrix of mine. And then if you want more, which isn't necessarily better or worse, although in the Matrix cases it was worse, you watch the other two movies or read the other two stories because it's a different sort of thing. Let's see, Ansel and Crystal, how do you handle or have you handled spoilers for Crystal's hopes as they appear in Trials? And this is something you thought of changing in rewrites should they happen for hardcover editions. So I will say, I'll answer first here and then Crystal take over. I have done very good in general of having Silent Night skip things and not mention things that are going to be revealed in Hopes, especially compared to Wishes. Like a lot of big stuff that happened in Hopes and the specific details of it, you're going to be surprised because Silent he's been focusing on his own stuff and hasn't thought about some of the other things. So that's how we've been handling it. Whereas we showed a lot of A/B scenes or two sides of the same scene in our original stories. That's not happening in Hopes, nor is it going to. So, for as much as you think's being spoiled by Trials, there's a hell of a lot more. And Crystal,
You pretty much covered it. I'm pretty excited. I mean, already we've seen a bunch of things in Hopes that hasn't really been spoiled, I don't think, at all in Trials, and there is still more. So look forward to it, y'all.
Including some really big stuff. Big stuff. All right. Let's see.
Did you have Hand speak for me?
No. I used
your voice. You had Hand speak for me.
I did not. I used a different voice. I made up a voice for you. It was a different voice than Hand's voice.
Okay.
All right. Ansel, did a toaster repair pony ever appear in Quill and Blade? He or she did not. Let's see. Ansel Crystal, where is Zubrika in your universe? Are there mainly satellite horses? Let's see here. So as far as zebras go, we haven't developed them a lot. It's a small area, and it's physically connected to Equestria, but that's not real well developed yet. It may be in the future. It may not be. Some things we've chosen not to really develop in the interim. Some we have. So, for instance, even though they don't appear at all other than what you would see in the show, we actually have a lot of changeling lore. We just choose not to focus or use it because, again, changelings are oversaturated in the market. So that's something that we have very well outlined is what the changelings are, how changelings are, all that good stuff. Zebras, not so much. They're basically ponies. There's not a huge difference. They don't have a grand civilization, but we haven't put a lot of details. So let's see. Are there mainly saddle Arabian horses? The story. I'm not sure.
I'm going to just go ahead and assume that's asking about Vale.
Probably, and then the answer. Oh yeah.
It's the only thing I got. In which case, Vale primarily focuses on a lot of saddle Arabians, which are more than just differently colored earth ponies, because they have a completely different culture and history going on a different continent with different situations and different environments. Oh, zebras? Well, we haven't done anything about zebras, so I don't know. Saddle Arabians. I am clever. Thank you. You are my new favorite for the day. Saddle Arabians are the primary species race featured in Vale, but there are others, including one that has been mentioned tangentially in Wishes, if you want to go read through 400,000 words to try and find it.
Indeed. But yes, it's not just saddle Arabian horses, but the next most featured species is not ponies.
That is correct.
There's a spoiler there. Ponies are not going to be very well represented in that story. Let's see here. Crystal and Ansel, and I'll let you go first this time. What were your goals for your respective stories when you started writing them, and how they changed over time, if at all?
So the goal of Wishes was, hey, my husband's writing this story, and it features an OC that's technically mine. I should probably write, like, 10, 20 chapters explaining who she is. That was the origin of Wishes. And how have they changed over time? Well, Wishes is over 100 chapters long, so I think that answers that.
Memoirs was created around the first Luna episode. I really liked that episode, and I had an OC that I had made just sort of in general because I was bored, and I was like, okay, I want him to fit into there, and so I wrote all the chapters prior to that just so I could get up to that story so it would make sense instead of him just being like out of left field. And so that was the only intent of writing memoirs, was to write a fanfic about that one episode, and then I just kept going. Let's see here. I already answered that. Do you think you'll be attending any BronyCons next summer? We will definitely be at BronyCon, but we will not be attending any other pony conventions. Ansel Crystal, pizza crust, yes or no? Her, yes. Me, sometimes. And Crystal, what's Mango's favorite song?
The Mango song?
Mango, 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 la 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 la.
Actually, her
Based
favorite song is probably the chorus to Lovin' You by Minnie Riperton.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah. All right. Well, if anyone has any other questions, throw them out there now. We're coming. Typically, we go 2 hours. We're coming up a little short on this particular time. So, if you have any other questions that you want to throw out there, or just discussions, we can certainly address them. And if not, that's fine too.
Ooh, I can answer that question.
Yes, go for it.
So here's the story. Since there's not a lot, that's the currently last question, I will tell a story. So we, Ansel, myself, and our friend Matt were driving, I guess, down to Georgia? I don't know why Matt was with us.
Fred had dropped him off, and we were taking him home.
Oh, right.
Because we were going down anyway.
Yes, that's okay. So there was a reason why he was there. They were in the front seat, and I was in the back seat of my car, which is not the most well-maintained car in the world, which is not my fault, but that's okay. That's a separate story. So it's a lot bouncier than Ansel's car, and
to clarify, was not the best maintained car prior to us receiving it.
Yes, it's still suffering the damage of previous owner, but we take care of it now. So, but it's still a lot bouncier than Ansel's car, and I get motion sick extremely easily. So we're driving down on this 4-hour trip, and I get so motion sick that I have to lie down. So I'm lying down in the back of the car, and I'm like, I need to think about anything to get my mind off of how nauseated I am. And for some reason, I start thinking about Saddle Arabia because it's like, well, we never really done anything with it. Do we want to put any lore with that? And I come up with the story, and that distracted me from my nausea, and also kind of was like, I really kind of want to write the story. So when we got down to Georgia, I talked to Ansel about it. I was like, hey, I got this idea for a story. We talked about it, and we totally fell in love with it. So that's why Saddle Arabia, because I was sick to my stomach.
It's also a chance for us to kind of shift more to original storytelling, but with a tangential bridge back to ponies. Because again, there's so little on Saddle Arabia, and a lot of people don't write about it in general. We can pretty much do whatever we want, and that puts us more towards that original storytelling, and we're enjoying that. And then again, the tangential links to Quill and Blade, other than the fact that it's all canon and whatnot, just very helpful. All right,
Yeah,
Crystal.
it was a stray idea that the more we talked about it, because at first I just kind of was like, haha, so this is how I stopped being so sick. I was thinking about this. And we kind of, as pretty much most of our story work goes, tossing it back and forth, it kind of expanded, and we were like, well, we can kind of have this hook in here, and actually it can explain this, and it was kind of awesome. It was the best nausea I've ever had.
Okay, Crystal, Ansel did a fantastic imitation of you. How about a short Ansel imitation?
Howdy, I'm kind of a jerk, and I don't say hi to my wife when she says hi, I miss you. I'm just kind of like, howdy.
Yeah, it seems legit.
He says howdy. He says howdy to everyone. And when I'm like, hi, honey, because I haven't seen him in days, and he was just like, howdy.
Ansel, could Silent Knight ever go on a mission he wouldn't be able to finish? Yes, I would certainly say so. He's not immortal, that's for sure. I am apparently a cowboy, yes.
Well, you say howdy. And you're a jerk. So yes, you're a cowboy. I'm sorry to all cowboys.
Apparently, according to Crystal, all cowboys are jerks. Keep that in mind. Not much story behind the writing name. Ansel was an NPC in a role-playing campaign that I've ran several times over the years for Pathfinder and or D&D, depending on where it was. It's just a name I kind of made up. I like the sound of it, and so I wanted something different for ponies, and I just went with that. So nothing really clever or significant, but I typically like shorter names. I typically, especially for avatars, easy to spell, easy to say. And so that was it.
Well, you say easy to spell, but more often than not, it gets misspelled.
Well, it's only got 5 letters. Ansel, Ansley,
Anzadoodle.
Yes, these are all things. Yes, Ansel. I thought I was very clever when I came up with that. I enjoyed it. Haven't had any time to use it lately, but I rather enjoyed that. Oh, good night, Tev. All right, dang. Well, I think an hour and a half is plenty good for this time. So next live event, we'll probably have more information. We'll do an update on the books. We'll be further along in Vale. So we hope you've enjoyed this, and we will see everybody in November. Oh, let's see here. One more question. I'll answer one more question. I don't know if you have answered this before, but do you have any plans for the Nox ponies? If we're talking specifically the twins, the answer is maybe, can't confirm or deny. If we're talking about all the Nox ponies in general, yes, but not perhaps large enough for people to be really super satisfied, other than the fact that we've seen the matron more recently. But the twins ultimately in the original story did not work out as well as I had hoped, so that they did not quite get the screen time I had hoped and just had too many plates spinning. But that doesn't mean that they're done and out. So we may see them again. We may not. We may see one of them. We may see both. We will just have to see. Crimson was supposed to make an appearance in Trials. I just never had time for it. He was already supposed to have made one, but there was just not enough. And truthfully, he was going to sort of fill in the role that Tumble filled in, and I liked Tumble better. So Tumble stole Crimson's part, and Crimson was very upset by that. But he can suck it.
And if anyone has things they would like to see more of in other future live events, we're also open to suggestions and ideas.
Indeed. And as per normal, if you'd like to do a guest spot, you need to send Crystal a PM specifically and tell her about the topic that you'd like to do, and she'll put it on the poll, and folks will vote and go from there. Patrons, as a reminder, Crystal is going to do the first cut poll of Scene of the Quarter. Kristen, did you get all those?
Yes, I did.
All right, so first cut vote, Scene of the Quarter is going to be up within the next hour. And once we go from there, we'll have a second cut, and then that will decide on that. Yep, that's it posted. There will be no secret shenanigans afterwards. Not this week.